Hello everyone, welcome to MediaNama. Recently, the Madhya Pradesh High Court made news for upholding a lower court's order that held a WhatsApp group's admin liable for objectionable photo that was being shared on the group. What really happened in this case and why is it important to understand in context of grievances related to social media content? We have with us MediaNama journalist Arati Ganesan, who has reported on this and would help us understand why is this case important and other questions related to the case. Hi, Arti. Could you please
I,
give us a quick rundown of the case before we get into the specifics of what the court said?
yeah, absolutely. So this emerges from an FIR that was filed in 2018. Basically, there was a WhatsApp group and a picture was shared on it where you had a naked woman sort of imposed next to an image of the Indian flag. An FIR was subsequently filed according to the court order. And after that, a magistrate court started to frame charges against the people in the group who had actually shared the image. Now, the issue is that the other members of the group had actually left it. So only one person was left, and that's the accused in this case. And he
Hmm.
was actually, because in WhatsApp, when everyone leaves and you're the only member left, you become the administrator by default. We've all seen that
Right.
happen in our personal cases. So that's what happened to him. So these charges were also, whether in the FIR or with the magistrate court, filed against him as well. And there were multiple charges filed, for example, under the Indian Penal Code, like sedition and promoting enmity between different groups on various grounds. He was also charged under the IT Act for transmitting sexually explicit content. And he was even charged under the Indecent Representation of Women Act as well. Now, the accused wasn't really happy with these charges naturally, so he challenged them at the Madhya Pradesh High Court, saying that the order was unreasonable and should be set aside. And there were various grounds for which he said that. The first was that even though the photo had been shared on a group that he happened to be a member of, he hadn't liked, shared, or even created the photograph itself. He was just a member and happened to be on the group. Second is he wasn't the original administrator. This comes back to that point that he became the default administrator because two other members left the group afterwards. So he wasn't really liable in that sense. And his final thing was that there was no real prima facie or sort of, there wasn't a sufficient initial investigation to kind of make out a legal case against him. So he asked the Madhya Pradesh High Court to basically strike down or set aside the order. Now, the prosecution argued the opposite, essentially saying that he was the admin, therefore he was liable quite simply. And they also mentioned that he didn't leave the group even though the pictures were posted. So he remained on it. And sort of, I'm briefly quoting from the order. It said that since the applicant was undisputedly the group admin at the time when the objectionable photograph was percolated and shared, he will be liable for the aforesaid offenses, irrespective of the fact that he became admin by default. So basically, what they did, all they did was uphold the lower court's order. It wasn't an original sort of investigation and case in that sense.
So, in the past, there have been cases where the Madras High Court and the Bombay High Court have said that admins are not responsible for content being posted by members unless it's an organized act. So, is the Madhya Pradesh High Court suggesting that WhatsApp admins are accountable for content posted on the group, or are there nuances to this case which are noteworthy and we might have missed that?
So yeah, both courts have said that, and the Bombay High Court has been fairly clear that, admins in that sense on WhatsApp don't have very huge powers. They're essentially just moderating who the members are, adding them or removing them as required. They
Hmm.
don't have censorship features that they can use, and they can't really control or predict what those members will post once they're on the group. So in that sense, administrator is a bit of an overloaded term. You're basically like a security guard letting in people to the group and letting them out as well. Um, and Bombay High Court has also been clear to that extent that if the person is not involved in the crime, they shouldn't necessarily be framed as the accused. But naturally, if they are involved in some crime directly, then they can be prosecuted. Now, on your second question, I wouldn't really go so far as to say that the Madhya Pradesh High Court's ruling was intended to be pervasive or apply to everything. I think in this case, it was based very clearly on the lower court's order. The application was to review the order and to set it aside. So, and that order was essentially saying that yes, a prima facie case has been made out against this
Mm.
member of the WhatsApp group. Now, the court has made its judgment based on the facts that were available to it, and it upheld that order. Now, we may disagree, but
Mm.
we really only have the information from the order to go by. We have to assume always that it's made in good faith, right? So I would definitely say that this is a case specific ruling. And we could even see the same court or any other high court or district court in India rule on a similar case like this and hold once again that admins are not liable. So it's
Mm.
not that this is a blanket thing. It's based on what the context of the case was, and I think we should read it that way as well.
Right, right. So, are there any rules for admins determined by WhatsApp in its content and privacy policy? Any kind of guidelines as such?
So I couldn't find anything. I did look a little bit, and then I found an article by a couple of lawyers in India from a top law firm who kind of answered the question. And again, it just comes back to this point that WhatsApp admins are not powerful people. They just control who enters and exits the group. They don't have censorship powers. They can't control the flow of information that happens. At the most, they can send a message setting the guidelines and the community guidelines for that group, and then having a healthy conversation within it. So what from what I have understood in this case, of course, if objectionable content is forwarded to a group or a chat, it can be prosecuted under Indian law. And we
Mm.
know that there are very many provisions to do that. And we've seen that in this case. You can do it under the IPC, you can do it under the IT Act. Presumably, you can also do it under the IT rules as well. So there are ways to do that. But it's not necessary that the admin has to be held liable. It's just happened that in many cases, the admin is framed to be the liable party when objectionable content is shared. And we've seen different courts, whether it's the Bombay High Court or the Madhya Pradesh High Court, have very differing stances depending on the context of the case.
Right. So, according to you, since you've covered the case in detail, what could be the possible implications of this order?
Right. So, I mean, the first thing I'd like to say is again to hammer the point home. This is a case that's limited to its context. So, I don't want to make it seem like it's going to impact everything and everyone online. But
Right.
if you look at it in terms of its singular impact, I think when you hold admins liable for content like this, you essentially make people scared, in my opinion, of using social media platforms and organizing on social media platforms. Because you can't predict what someone's going to say. They could very well say something that incites an illegal act, and you would never want to be held liable for that if you're not involved in it. So I think in some sense, what it does is it makes people more circumspect, more cautious about engaging with social media, about encouraging free speech, because admins may suddenly think, oh, we should come down much harder on our group, enforce
Mm.
harder moderation. And in some sense, I think restricting yourself, making yourself small is counterintuitive to what social media is often framed to be, which is a place for expression. So that's sort of how I would see it. And I also think it sort of runs counter to a lot of the other judgments that have emerged on this liability for WhatsApp admins. So it would be interesting to see maybe lawyers in the future will come up and try and understand um, what that conflict could mean for Indian citizens as well.
Right. Thanks, Arti, for your useful insights. For our viewers, if you're curious about tech policy news and developments, do check out our articles on MediaNama.com and follow our YouTube channel for quick explainers and quick takes on a wide range of tech policy issues. Thank you.